Hi there, America.
Yes.
We're the game room.
It's
And
raining outside.
a lot. As
Tino looks so enthused.
let us time lock this fucking evergreen content by saying that the remnants of Hurricane Ida,
the Remnicane.
What's so funny, Will?
He said the Remnicane.
What the hell?
I'm confused.
I am too. I don't know how he heard that.
I heard you say the Remnicane.
Get in the comments, gang, and tell them if I actually said that fucking word or not. Anyway,
please get in the comments, everyone.
The remnants of Hurricane Ida are passing overhead. Now, you may be in the far-flung future of 2050. Go fuck yourself. In which case, there may have been several hurricanes named Ida. No, not that one. And not that one.
We don't talk about
definitely
that one.
not that one. Yeah, that one.
What if they thought of our actual Ida first because they looked at the timestamp on this episode and they're like, oh, the one that hit, like, you know, America in 2021, and that was the first one they thought of, and you just told them not to think of that one.
Well, I'd say they were joke-ruining dipshits like you, but hey.
That's probably fine.
I'll drink to that.
So, to I guess to start off, there's some news. We don't have any questions today, but we do have a few comments and things that have to be said. First, Flora wants me to bring up that Steve was very shook when he got woken up for the podcast today.
Yeah, I woke up and I'm like, we're doing what now?
He was like, well, according to her, she says, he was like, whoa, and looking surprised. Feel free to mention that on the podcast, LOL. He looked scared for some reason when I tapped him. Haha. Also, to Aiden, he actually, pseudo question, more of like commentary. He actually forwarded something to me. I haven't had the chance to read it yet because I've been busy over the past few days. So I don't want to really get into it now. I want to actually have time to read it and try to give it some attention and maybe even send it to you guys so that we could actually kind of give it some due diligence next time. And the other quick thing to note, I am starting in 2 different fantasy campaigns this week. I will post photos. Tino, please, if you edit this, do not post this episode until Monday. Okay. Because otherwise it will get, well, the one will give away, I'll just say what they are. It's fantasy football leagues. It's that time of year
sadly,
again.
this has nothing to do with D&D.
No.
No, that's my.
I mean, it kind of is. It's like fantasy leagues are like D&D for jocks that aren't athletic enough to play the sport.
Yeah, it's like normie D&D,
and who are also not smart enough to calculate their own dexterity modifier,
which I find to be impressive because D&D itself has gotten to be pretty normie.
Yeah,
it is now. But I mean, like, it's funny because fantasy football's been around for a long time. Even, as far back as, when people would be like, you play D&D? What a nerd. Anyway, let me talk about my team. I got this guy and this guy, and they're gonna play make-believe football over the weekend.
What do you mean you run a level 3 paladin? Dude, that's so dumb. Now, hang on, let me get back to my hobby. I'm just going to draft Brian Westbrook in the 2nd round. That is totally a steal. But yeah, so I think I already uploaded a photo of the one team I drafted already. Tino, you could show everyone my cool fantasy football D&D stuff that I'm doing. This is all going to be... Yes.
I first heard about fantasy football in 2006, I think, and I am still disappointed by the fact that it's not a bunch of wizards running around and, you know, a quarterback throwing a magical jewel and it being intercepted by a gnome, and then
that's
a dragon
Blood Bowl.
comes out and scorches the end zone.
That's Blood Bowl.
Tino, yeah, no, I was about to say, Tino, I have great news for you. Exists a thing called Blood Bowl that you should
All right,
look up.
Blood Bowl it is. That's what I'm playing. That is my fantasy football.
Blood Bowl
Yeah.
is both the most nonsensical and the best part of Warhammer.
Yeah.
Nonsensical is right up my alley.
I want you to think about what a bunch of British people,
Oh,
because
this
that's
is
what
already
Games
wonderful.
Workshop is, looking at the rules of American football and going, you know, a tabletop version of this, a wargaming tabletop version of this would be great. And then making it, and it becomes the best part of their franchise, and they don't want to acknowledge it. Because
That would mean that the nerds won.
Kinda, yeah.
Well, no, because these guys are the nerds.
Yeah, and they won.
But they don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah, because maybe not having one is a crucial core part of their identity. I don't know.
I don't know. I just think they were kind of jerks. Like, no, Space Marines, though.
Nah, kinda.
I mean, maybe. Who knows?
You could have a module that lets you put Space Marines in. That would just increase the chaos.
I think they have tried to do Blood Bowl 40K. I don't know if they ever succeeded.
Oh, that would have been a mess.
That's the idea.
Oh.
I love
that
messes.
is a good mess.
Are 40K Space Marines the ultimate example of sports doping in that context?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you imagine a
Well,
world
hang
where...
on. Are you getting kicked out for blood doping because you were a Space Marine, or are you getting kicked out because you summoned a demon to eat the entire team's defense?
Okay, first off, that demon's name is Chester, and he's the best QB coach we have had in 6 seasons, man. Come on. We need this win.
So...
2.
I love
2,
how
it's not the extra organs, it's the combat drugs.
See, that's the thing. I love the idea of like how if 40K football existed, the scandal would be, and his quarterback had more than 4 hearts. That is not regulation organ sanctioning. So, yeah, so I think what I'm going to do is I might film a little video with audio each week. Might just be me ranting into a camera about how my fantasy teams are doing. And I'll send it to Tino. And he could cut like promos or whatever. And just everyone can pay attention to my descent into madness as I chase real money by putting electronic graph numbers into players on an app.
You play EVE Online?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can do this online.
No,
I said you play EVE Online.
Oh, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Eve
that's the spreadsheet simulator.
Yes. It's like, did you think you were going to get cool space battles? No, fucker. Get an accounting job. Literally, actually.
Oh, boy.
Like, I've heard tales of, like, to join certain companies, which are effectively the versions of guilds in EVE Online, you have to do a full-fledged job interview.
Oh my gosh, that's too
No.
stressful. Does anybody miss the time when games were fun?
So
Yes.
the deal with EVE is that if you do the spreadsheet numbers just right, you can send a bunch of dudes you hired, and not in-game. Like, when I say, the thing that attracts people is like, dudes you hired means some actual dudes whose job it is are to fly their fleet of warships to your corporate rivals and blow the fuck out of them.
Huh.
Dude, I did
takeover without the paperwork.
Dude, I did a freaking job.
What?
I did a freaking job interview style joining of a guild in like 2001 for EverQuest. Like I very distinctly remember we were just like hanging out in some like outside of town, and they're like, "Hey, so like, can you tell me like what you're gonna bring to the guild?" And I was like 16. I'm like, "What are you asking me?" What the fuck?
Steve, you used to play FF14. Can you imagine doing that for fucking free companies?
I mean, if you're like a top rating,
Well, that's because most of the
free
top
company,
rating,
sure.
Well, because most of the top rating free companies I've seen in FF14, because rating is an 8-man thing, have been like, yeah, no, we were a pre-existing group of friends who just got into it.
Wait a minute, Steve, you used to play Final Fantasy 14?
Yeah, I mean, like, I kind of play it off and on. Like, I don't play it right now, but...
So one of the beautiful things about FF14, quote, literally the guy who runs it said this, is like, hey, there are other video games, and there are going to be long spells between content sometimes.
Hey, there are other video games, and they're going to come into ours.
Well, no, that's Fortnite.
Oh, God, yes, it is.
Oh, Lord. But basically said there's other video games. We're just going to be long spells between content. We're not WoW. We're not going to have you log in every day to do upkeep and stuff. Take breaks, because that means that when you come back, it'll be even more special.
They still have that, though. They still have daily quests, though.
I mean, they have it for people, because there's obviously going to be people who go, no, I want to spend all my time playing 14. So yeah, there's going to be daily quests. But how long does a daily take you?
I mean, a lot of it is, based on, like, doing roulettes and stuff, which can take, an hour,
Which,
2 hours.
Depends which dungeon.
Just depends. It depends on what you want to do. I mean, you're right in that, like, you don't absolutely have to do it every day. You really don't.
And, like, Yoshida has said, if you want to drop for a month or two, go ahead.
Right.
I wouldn't want to play a game that would require me to play every day, because then it would just become stressful, because it would be like, oh, wait, am I going to have time to do this? Oh, no, what's going to happen to my character level?
Well, I guess you don't want to play any gacha game.
And you don't
that's basically all those games are like that.
Yeah.
And you don't want to play World of Warcraft, because that's the model. There's a reason the World of Warcraft community ended up the way it did. And, like, you can talk about scandals or toxic players all you want. The game required daily exposure. And you do something long enough and you'll end up resenting it.
Yeah.
No, I think the thing with WoW is that the content has dried up. Like, no one really cared about the story anymore. I mean, it was getting really, really bad.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, why am I even playing this game anymore?
I'm
sure.
Well, I mean, that's why the exodus to 14 happened, because the trade-off with 14 is that the story is the thing.
Yeah.
There are I know people who play those games for the Lavalier twins.
Right.
I'm sure, that Blizzard, though, even with people going to Final Fantasy 14, they could take comfort in the fact that they have all of their players over in China. Oh, that's right, they don't anymore.
Yep.
True.
Oh, Lord. The best. So the best part about this, I'd want to point out, is a bit of irony. There's been a bit of a misunderstanding in the West about the kind of company Tencent was. Because Tencent used to accidentally run on the toes of the government in Beijing a lot, and this is Beijing's retaliatory strike.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's just for underage kids. Adults can still play as much as they want.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
still,
So
it's
you
fun.
guys were referencing what I was about to bring up, that they were basically trying to enforce kids only being able to play video games
For an hour.
1 hour on weekends.
On weekends, correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well.
Better hope when you boot up your PS5 that it doesn't have an update that takes 45 minutes.
Yep. Well, it's literally the government flexing its muscle, and it's also making all that foreign investment go, ugh. Well, we'll see what fucking happens. Because, that shit wasn't inevitable, I guess.
No. No one saw this coming. Speaking of
No.
video games.
I mean,
People did-
China
no.
at this point is like a real-life Mirror's Edge.
Yeah.
So here's the deal, Will. People did see this coming. You know what those people are called? Looking for a new job. Because they weren't winners. Except now they don't look so stupid, do we, Don? Anyway.
Oh.
That is related to nothing that actually happened to me. I am not a game developer. I've never been in game development. Blizzard has enough problems in the U.S. with the U.S. government as it is, which honestly, fuck Blizzard for so many goddamn reasons.
Why? They gave us great characters like McCree.
Man, oh god.
They're just gonna rename the character McGree, not McCree,
No.
McGree.
They're gonna try to rename him Mercer, and Matt Mercer's gonna be like, "Fuck off, fuck off! You're getting sued. Go away." There's something I want to point out on the whole Blizzard thing with that lawsuit. So, for those of you not in the know, it's
that
funny.
would be me.
So I'm going to explain this to you with a story. My mother has 35 years of experience in human resources in media. Upon reading the totality of this story, I approached my 70-year-old now retired mother and said, "Mom, I want to tell you about the biggest piece of video game news in the year of 2021. And she goes, "David, why would you tell me this?" I said, "Because it'll be of particular interest to you to see what happens when the human resources department of a massive company fails utterly, both in the dimension of its job to protect the company and the employees." For those of you not in the know, after a 2-year investigation, I don't remember what the name of the California State Department is. It's like it's like the FE something H. It's basically a labor department. They had a 2-year investigation of Activision Blizzard, which has culminated in a massive lawsuit to penalize the company for the crazy unsafe work environment they created. There are stories of not just numerous amounts of sexual harassment that was ignored, but rather heinous things, including a suite at what I think was an E3 show or some other trade show that was literally nicknamed the Cosby Suite.
Oh gosh.
With all the implications
It was actually at Blizzard's like.
Oh, it was at BlizzCon? Oh my fucking god!
It was at Blizzard's headquarters. Like they just had that all the time.
Oh, that's even worse.
Oh, this is lovely.
The one that strikes me.
More.
The one that strikes me though is the story of the woman whose boss kept making unwanted advances on her. And the two were set to go on a business trip together, much to her chagrin. And he kept making insinuations about how he was going to quote unquote score that night with her. So she decided on the business trip to fling herself off the balcony of their hotel, I think.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, she killed herself.
I didn't know about that.
Okay, so I don't know if that's how she died, but she did kill herself.
Huh.
Now, I want to point out that this isn't a rumor. This isn't a forum post or some call-out post or some shit like that. This is charges, not charges. What are the terms when it's a civil lawsuit, Will? In like the actual listings in a
I guess a complaint. I'm not 100%
certain. Yeah, these are literally itemized in a list in a court document filed by the state of California against Activision Blizzard.
I guess that would make it a civil complaint rather than a criminal complaint.
Yeah, no, so the civil complaint is the full document, but like there's a name for the individual. In a criminal complaint, we call them charges.
Right.
Yeah. So
I guess here we'll just call them bullet points.
Yeah. So I want to bring up something as a guy who works in an industry with a heavy amount of regulation. Regulatory bodies do not bring lawsuits unless they know they're going to win. If they don't know they're going to win, they'll call the company first and be like, "Hey, so shit's fucked and you need to course correct. Because if this keeps happening, they will literally say to you, that will give us enough evidence to sue you. So pay the fines, fix the shit, and we'll be all good and you can go on your way and we'll move on to the next thing on our shit list." Because you're not
So in other words, Blizzard is a worse place to work than Aperture Science, you're saying?
Effectively.
Possibly, yeah.
Aperture Science may have done unethical murder shit, but you know what? At least your bosses weren't making constant passes at you and then crawling under your cubicles to look at your panties.
I'm just gonna upload something to the general chat regarding this topic. Tino, feel free to post this on the screen.
Yeah, the actual
I can't see it right now because then I'll lose your screen.
That's okay.
Yeah, this was one of the exhibits from the lawsuit. The actual texts about the Cosby Suite.
Yeah, I love Jesse McCree's comment.
Yeah, come up to the cause.
And the one too above that.
You know, I think Riot still hasn't addressed all of their internal issues either.
They have not, but they have not yet been sued for them.
Right.
Ubisoft is a Canadian company and a French company. They're dealing with some civil suits from individual people who have sued them. But whatever French and Canadian regulatory agencies are looking at this and going, there's an idea here.
Yeah.
So once again, I want to emphasize something to our listeners. When it comes to this point, it is full on gone. This is literally the last tool that a regulatory agency particularly wants to engage in, because this takes time. If they're doing this on pure fuck you asshole energy.
Yeah. It's in a weird way, Dave's on point with this. So I'm gonna draw a comparison to something not in the video game sector, but
no, so that's the part that I want to emphasize here. We are so far beyond video games at this point. We are talking about labor abuse right now.
No,
I just mean that's how badly they fucked up.
But I'm talking about there's all kinds of weird rules when it comes to the government bringing action against any kind of group. For example, who here knows the current status of marijuana's legality in the state of Pennsylvania or New Jersey?
Oh, in New Jersey, we just legalized that shit recently.
Yeah, right. We legalized it at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, I think it's legal for medicinal use currently, right? Is that correct?
Yep, you're all accurate. What is marijuana's current federal status?
Still illegal.
Still, what's the schedule actually?
It's still Schedule 1.
Schedule 1.
Yeah. Thank you.
Same as crack cocaine and things of that nature.
Yeah, still lots of druggy boys.
So, here's the fun thing. Marijuana for decades has always been considered Schedule 1 and thus illegal. Yet states have been passing medical marijuana and recreational marijuana laws, as you've seen in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Guys, why do you think that the federal government has not sued the bejesus out of these states?
Oh Lord, they would lose in a heartbeat. That is that crosses some internal state commerce.
I don't know
shit.
No.
My naive constitutionalist mind is saying is thinking of that clause in the Constitution that says any rights not given to the federal government are hereby delegated to the states.
You see, I'm where you're at, Tino, except I think I know what Will's about to talk about.
In other words, states' rights trump federal decrees, but I mean...
Let's have Will say the answer.
well, thank you, Steve.
That's the thing.
Here's the thing. When it comes to why marijuana has been legal for the past 10 or so years in a lot of these places, and why it's going to other states is, generally speaking, there's nothing stopping the Justice Department from suing any of these states, except for the fact that pretty much I want to say it was either late in the Bush administration or early in the Obama administration. They passed down guidelines saying look, if you want to go after states that are making their own laws regarding marijuana legality, you can. You just don't get federal funding to do so. Now, the caveat to that is there's a little asterisk with that statement, where if states ever are caught violating their own rules or laws that they set up, the Justice Department gets full funding. So states are very careful about how they do things.
Yeah. That's so the main argument that runs through a lot of state houses when they pass these laws is we're going to tax the shit out of it. The reason they're able to say that with confidence is because The undercurrent that few people pick up on is if we're not regulating this to the point where we're able to reliably tax it, we're fucked.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is so in 2016, I remember I was starting an internship out at a hospital. I'm not going to say where because I want to give some anonymity. But the week that I started there, Pennsylvania had passed their medical marijuana law. And 3 weeks later, we all got called into some big meeting, and like the chief legal officer was there. He's like, yeah, so this happened. What are we going to do about it? And everyone kind of just looked at me and said, can you come up with like, guidelines on how we handle this? I'm like, yeah, sure. This sounds fun. And it was like,
the intern, make the intern do it.
No, but you know what it was? Back then, there were like, I think 7 statutes and like 23 regulations or something like that. So it wasn't that hard to go through. And essentially it was like, are you within a, 500 feet of like a school or a daycare or something like that? And it's like, if you are, you can't dispense it. You could only administer it. So they have very strict guidelines on like how to handle it. And by setting up very strict laws until the federal government legalizes marijuana, states set up very strict laws to basically show the federal government and be like, hey, look, we're being very strict about how we do this. Even in Colorado, where I think it's recreational, they have very strict laws regarding its use.
So this is honestly one of the most fascinating things. Because of the nature of the regulation, this has caused problems for the growing marijuana industry, an industry that I remind you is sold for legalization primarily on the ability to be taxed. Most banks will not take money from a weed business because transiting those funds on a federal line is going to be considered trafficking drug funds. Mm-hmm. This has led to an interesting system of where a lot of these companies will be cash-based. And because that's a lot of physical money to move, there are satellite industries that pop up when the marijuana industry pops up, which includes armored security trucks.
Right.
Carrying physical amounts of cash to banks so that they can be processed with basically a wall of separation from the business.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like legalized money laundering almost.
Effectively.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like.
It's effectively that. I think they're starting to find some loopholes in this to basically start to allow some electronic transfers. But we'll see. What's most interesting to me, though, is that when you legalize cannabis, you don't just legalize people smoking up. You also legalize everyone who wants to make things out of weed for the novelty of saying they're making something out of weed.
Right.
I worked for a manufacturing firm whose name I will not disclose here, but the firm primarily employed halfway house inmates, and our boss got it into his head and was talking to people about the idea of packaging CBD oil with our manufacturers. Our foreman, who was one of these former halfway house inmates who had been released, turned to our boss and said, most of these guys are recovering drug addicts. They literally cannot get anywhere near this. Because if they get found out that they were even handling it, even in their job capacity, they're going right back to jail.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended those ambitions. But I also happen to know for a fact that a bunch of companies I've talked to over the years are starting to discuss what's the necessary infrastructure for a corporate setting involving marijuana. And
what do you mean a corporate setting involving marijuana?
I mean, Tino, there are literally information technology considerations that have to be made. Especially considering that you can't do electronic banking for a lot of this. You have to still track your books.
I see.
Yeah, like you can't sell weed online.
Right. Okay.
Right.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, but you can promote, and also you have to
I for some reason when the way you phrased it, it made me think of like everybody, like the CEO gets together. Everybody is in the corporate meeting and they all just start lighting up.
So no. That's where this eventually will end up full disclosure, I talk in a lot of corporate speak because I work office jobs. That's where it ends up, where literally my boss is going to turn to me one day and said, "Hey, David, we're inviting those guys up from that company we're talking to. Make us an appointment at the nearest weed room."
Oh my gosh.
And they'll... Now, here's the thing.
No, wait. Are they what kind of weed room are we talking? Like hookah pipes or something? And these guys that you're talking to, are they foreign types? Because otherwise, because then you'll have foreign types with hookah pipes saying way oh way oh way oh way, and then everyone's just gonna start walking like Egyptians.
Oh Lord, oh Lord.
Okay, so we're agreed. We killed Tino first, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But
well, on that note,
but
I guess it makes sense that New Jersey still doesn't have any weed shops because they haven't finished making all the laws yet for it.
So literally, what happened is that it was done by a referendum twice. First time it passes, but the referendum specifically states that the New Jersey State Congress and Senate have to. Basically, this referendum says go do it, and they tried and they failed. There were disagreements about not the what, but the how, and things about implementation. The usual government nitty gritty bureaucratic shit. And so it fell through. And while they were negotiating, a whole bunch of small businesses, New Jersey based, were making plans to expand into the weed sector because there's money to be made.
Well, it's about licensing too. They're setting it up so only a certain amount of licenses can be distributed to growers
that was where the big fight was.
Yeah, because in New Jersey, you can't grow your own weed. Like even if it's legal, you can't grow it. I know that some states allow you to grow it yourself though, but New Jersey is not one of them.
Is that similar to how the alcohol licensing works in New Jersey, or is it?
Like there's a finite amount of licenses. At least that's how they're approaching it. I think they're taking a lot of notes from the alcohol side and limiting the amount of licenses they can give out.
Yeah,
so you can't just go to your local ShopRite and fucking buy weed. Like it's not going to work like that.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's kind of funny because the way the alcohol licensing in New Jersey works is that you can buy your alcohol licenses off of other businesses. There's a diner I went to for years that never served alcohol. And then one day, 10 years ago, they are installing taps at their counter.
Right.
To serve beers and other things. And I asked what happened. It's like, a friend of mine was retiring and he sold us his liquor license.
Yeah, and I know that they're very expensive now just because of, how saturated the market is. And, they don't have any more licenses to give out. So they literally have to wait for businesses to close in order to get it. And there's probably, a bidding process, too, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like the deed for a house.
Yeah, right.
It's
the deed for a doobie.
Well, that's the process they're developing in Jersey right now. In this case, it's the deed for a cold one before a doobie. The deed for the doobie, as it will become, is honestly a matter of time and bureaucratic rollout, which the pandemic can't have been helping. So,
yeah, but I know that in places like LA, you can just walk into any store and be like, "Hey, can I get some weed?" And they're like, "Sure, here you go, bro."
Yeah, hook me up.
It's super easy to get it, and there's dispensaries all over the place. If you look on the Google Maps, it's there's one here, and then a mile down the road, there's another.
The air in LA looks the same as it did in 1991, but it's just not smog anymore.
Right. Absolutely. Well, it's wildfires and weed.
Yep.
Unfortunately, right now it's a few more wildfires than weed.
Right.
So the entire state's getting baked, is what you're telling me.
In both senses of the word.
Yep.
All right then.
Has Alaska legalized weed? I can't remember.
I don't think so, not yet.
They probably
When they
should.
do, it'll be
they got
baked
nothing
Alaska.
going on up there. Just a lot of bears and wolves.
Yeah.
You know, just give them some weed, man.
Yeah,
give
so
them
you want to
something
be
to
high
do.
around dangerous animals.
No. What you do is you get the grizzly bears high, and then they don't want to attack you anymore. They just, then you just sit back to back talking about life and eating raw salmon.
So here's the
Man.
thing about grizzly. Do you know what the grizzly bears are up to, Tino? You know they've been moving north.
Nobody
And-
knows what the grizzly bears are up to.
Well, I do. 'Cause
Yeah,
they've been-
where are you getting your info?
Yeah.
I'm getting my info from the facts of nature because the grizzly bears are moving north and the polar bears are moving south, and they're
The
looking
Great
at it.
Bear War of 2022.
So
So the grizzly bears are going to be the new polar bears.
So you think that, Tino? Except what's happening is that they're looking at each other, going, "Hey," and that's why there's literally a thing now called the Grolar Bear.
Oh, so they're like sandy blonde bears, basically.
A little bit. They look like mostly white bears with like brown
Wait a minute.
streaks in their fur.
So basically you're telling me
Guy Fieri Bears.
Bears,
The frosted tips.
damn it,
Take me to Flavortown, baby.
Take me to Flavortown, which is this camper we found alone in the woods.
I just imagine some of those like frosted tip bears just going to the beach, putting on sunglasses and trying to surf.
They're serving up great eats.
Hold on, I'll find an article on this. But yeah, no, this is a real thing.
Well, Coca-Cola said to be
God.
less white, so they had to replace their polar bears with something.
Oh,
Damn.
that's spicy.
All right, we're getting canceled by
All right, well,
Coca-Cola.
it was great to see everybody. I'll see you later.
Bye, everybody. See you later. Man, I just wanted to talk about freaky bear sex, and you had to make this political.
Oh.
I was making a
Freaky
joke.
bear sex is always political, Dave.
It became political when we talked about weed, but then again, it became political when we turned on our cameras. So
Fair enough.
there's nothing that won't get
Dave,
touched by politics at
Freaky
some
bear
point.
sex is the flag of the Libertarian Party. Didn't you know that?
True. Oh God. Oh God.
To get back onto a more palatable topic for our audience.
Let's.
So I want to actually go back to something from I want to say back in like May of this year, so about 4 months ago. I'm gonna give a fairly condensed, spoiler-ridden review of Resident Evil 8 because guess what?
Right.
All of you have had time to play the game, so if I spoil anything, go screw.
And if we haven't played the game, then we've watched a full playthrough,
Yeah.
which is what I've
Yeah,
done.
I haven't finished it, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So hey, Will, you wanted this shit, right?
More tornadoes?
Yeah! All right. We're all
blowing
gonna
out
die.
Yeah, another flash flood. It's basically they keep pushing the flash flood warning back as for when it's supposed to end.
You know,
So-
I love how Dave's in an area.
Somebody at the emergency center just put their coffee down on the flash flood button. Like, man, why does my phone keep going off? Oh yeah,
I actually do hear sirens right now.
I love how Dave's
well,
in
you're
an
in
area.
Jersey. Isn't that just the normal ambient background?
Yeah.
I mean, true, but I also live near like the largest regional hospital in the area, so
Well, I love how Dave's been getting alerts for both flash floods and tornadoes, and like the flash floods are telling him go to higher ground, and the tornadoes are telling him go to lower ground. So Dave's kind of stuck between two disasters.
listen.
Go on the side of a hill.
My response to the nature is bring it. You cannot do anything worse to me.
All right, well,
Will,
I can.
launch into your thing. I'll be right back. I'm just getting a drink.
go for it. So, back when I gave my initial impression, I said that Resident Evil 8 could either be the best game in the series, the worst game in the series, and that depends on whether or not Mia dies. I can now confirm that Resident Evil 8 is the worst game in the series because Mia does not die. So here's what happens. The game starts off with Mother Miranda having replaced Mia for 6 months. Apparently.
What, as like a doppelganger?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, she takes on Mia's appearance and replaces her. Now, reports vary. It could be as short as a week that she's been in that house. It could be as long as 6 months that she's been in that house, right? So, the whole thing is, Miranda's been there getting her cheeks clapped by Ethan. While Mia's been while Mia's been in prison somewhere in Miranda's like secret castle. All throughout the game, you try to reassemble the random yellow blocks of your not dead baby daughter, because your daughter's been turned into like what looks like these giant wax rectangular cubes.
She got Minecraftified?
Sort of. So you defeat each of the lords in order to get their wax cube, and spoiler alert, you only have to defeat 2 of the lords to get the wax cubes. Lady Dimitrescu and Donna Beneviento, because you don't get their wax cubes until you beat them. Moreau stupidly leaves his out on like the table for you to take, and Heisenberg purposely leaves his on the table for you to take. He's like, yeah, I don't care.
Huh.
Like, just take this. I want to team up with you and kill Mother Miranda. So you go through that. You get bodied at one point by Mother Miranda, who just decides, like, yeah, it's time to just impale you through the chest and end you. And then you learn that Ethan's been made out of fungus or mold or whatever for like 3 years because he's dead. He's been dead since Jack Baker punched him in Resident Evil 7.
This is like 6 different kinds of messed up.
Yeah, which is like the biggest ass pull that I've ever seen in a Resident Evil game.
Wait. How does a dead person contribute to the conception of a baby? That doesn't make sense.
No, because he was infected with the mold,
Tino. It's never going to make sense.
Because he was infected by the mold. Also, I believe that plot
so it's a mold baby.
Yeah. I believe that Ethan being dead since Jack Baker first punched him is a complete ass pull that they just decided to come up with for this game.
Oh, no shit. Really?
Yeah. So that's my headcanon.
It's not, doesn't need to be, it literally is.
Yeah.
They were, I'll be real, this was not the plan from the beginning. This is a swerve they decided to go on.
See, what they should have just done is they kill Ethan, but because he was infected in the Baker's household, it's like, oh yeah, maybe walking through a place where the spores are in the air was a great way to get infected, and maybe we needed more than one cure to get me and my wife out of here, because that's a thing. So the end of the game basically has Chris Redfield, like, your daughter's been reassembled somehow, and she's alive again.
Because Resident Evil will.
Yeah,
the answer is because Resident Evil.
Chris Redfield takes her back to the helicopter where Mia's safe, and then they escape. Ethan sacrifices himself to destroy Mother Miranda and the giant mold village. And, oh, by the way, turns out that Oswald Spencer, the guy who founded Umbrella, went to Mother Miranda's village, like, years before the events of the first game.
Yeah.
And that's where he found the symbol.
Yeah, no, wasn't it like Mother Miranda, I was so happy to be your student.
Yeah, basically. It's like, by the way, I'm making my symbol to be the one that I saw in your village, because that makes sense. Okay.
So I do want to say there is a part of me that likes it because of the batshit implication, which is that Oswald Spencer and Mother Miranda are part of an order of fucking bio-wizards. And that's going to be where the villain of the next game comes from.
Nah, I don't like that at all. Here's the thing.
It would explain the repeated instances of dudes in the series who just show up in robes and can do shit.
See, my problem with the story is 3 parts. 1, Mother Miranda knowing Spencer is just, I mean, it's a weak attempt to make, I guess, this trilogy of games more connected to the series, because I feel like
it was literally put in just for that purpose.
Yeah, because it felt like,
and it's not going to be, and its success is literally dependent on how you feel about it.
I mean, I felt 8 was a fun game, and I really liked it. but that element of the story I didn't like. I thought it was really stupid to make Ethan dead from like the very earliest parts of Resident Evil 7, but he's been walking around for 3 years. Oh, by the way, apparently Mia knew about it.
Oh, you know, he's Titus. He's green.
Yeah, he's Titus from Final Fantasy X. That's what he is.
He's a green.
He's basic. Yes. Ethan is Titus. Holy crap, Steve.
Oh my god.
We solved it, boys.
Oh shit.
But basically, yeah, no. Here's what's really stupid about that, though. Mia apparently knew somehow. Like, apparently it's hinted that for, like, the entire 3 years after they got out of the Baker estate, she knew that Ethan was dead.
I mean, you like telling that Mia's wife that Mia's a fucking bioterrorist, so maybe she got off on fucking her mushroom husband.
I mean, but here's well,
That's just the plot to FF10 too.
yeah. I mean,
Oh god, you're right.
look,
I'm fairly certain that was the plot to one of the Mario games.
possibly.
No, that's the plot of every Mario game.
Wait, which Mario game are you talking about?
What you think?
The ones that were on Newgrounds.
Yeah. What you think you think that they're not in on that Bowser's not in on it? Nah, this is Mario and Peach spicing up a dead marriage.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's got like a good cuck thing going on, you know what I'm saying?
Like
Jesus.
Bowser's like the one most uncomfortable with the situation because he's got like a kid. Like he's just a single dad trying to live his life. He doesn't need these two fucking retired ass bougie Italian freaks fucking getting up in his grill.
I'd say no, but,
Yeah, but where
times
did
have
that
been
kid-
hard in my kingdom. I need the money.
Where did that kid come from, though? Just answer me that, and I'll be on my way.
There isn't
Bowser.
There isn't. No, because
Yes. Yes.
No, I think there's an X. Bowser is just trying to keep away from this shit as far as possible because if she finds out about it, she'll take the kid.
Yeah, probably.
Man, the Mario world just got really dark really quickly.
Kind of.
And the best part is that it didn't get dark in an edgy way. It got dark in a I feel this way.
Yeah, it's.
I've seen these court proceedings way.
These poor people. So, getting back to topic though. So Mia apparently knew that Ethan was dead for 3 years and said nothing to him to protect him.
Oh, so
Yeah,
it was
and
the
then
Sixth
then
Sense.
she got lit up.
But will the Mamoru?
Yeah, I mean,
but even Chris was like, "Hey, Ethan, what's up?" So like, did Chris know?
I don't think so. I think because Mia basically goes to Chris, like when Chris frees her from like the little prison cell she's in, like he's like, Ethan's dead, and Mia's like, no, there's something that you don't know. Ethan's very special. And then it's like, oh yeah, he's been dead this whole time, but walking around. And it's like, she's sad that he dies at the end. It's like, well, maybe if you told someone like Chris or someone in the BSA, just say like, hey, don't tell Ethan, because if he finds out, his body might start to deteriorate. But he's actually dead.
Well,
Like,
you want your stupid anime plot twist to make sense, but it's not because it's purpose.
no, I don't want there to be a stupid anime plot twist. That's
That's
the
the problem. But there is though.
Wait, hang on.
There
back up.
already is a stupid anime plot twist.
Back up. As somebody who has not played the Resident Evil games, so like if you're infected with mold and you die and you're still walking around, as long as you don't know you're dead, you can still walk around and do stuff?
Wait,
according to Resident Evil 8.
The mechanics of the mold are not well defined at all.
It sounds like Looney Tunes physics. It's like, hey, as long as you don't know you've walked off the edge of the cliff, you won't fall.
You know what?
But at the same time,
this has been the case for the entire fucking series.
Tino, but to sum it up, being infected with the
Looney
mold.
Tune biophysics.
No,
I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but zombies are not real. They've never been real. So it's already a fictional story.
No, Steve, that is nonsense. I've seen George A. Romero's documentary Night of the Living Dead from 1968. They clearly showed you what happened.
That was a documentary, and the events happened in real time.
Yes.
Listen, for me, Will, I'll say this for me. For me, Resident Evil 8 is no more or less crazy than any of the prior games.
Nah, all right. here's
I
the
think
thing.
Resident Evil 8 was reaching a little bit, and also and the whole plot to try and tie in the old franchise.
I will agree
storyline.
I will agree
weak.
that the tie-in for Oswald was gratuitous. If they really... Here's the thing. If you're going to have a gratuitous tie-in like that, don't half-ass it. Don't leave it as a note. Have the fucking prototype Dante and Virgil that they hear that are supposed to be the actual Spencer twins.
Yes.
Show up at the last minute to kill each other, to kill things, have some banter with Ethan, and then fuck off to the next game.
Yep.
So
that would have been great. That would have been hype. I would have liked that.
Yeah, but Tino, basically to answer your question, mold mechanics in Resident Evil 8, like you saw like the original Space Jam, right? Where Michael Jordan figures out like, oh, I have cartoon powers too, and he starts stretching out his arm and all that stuff.
We all grew up in the 90s. We saw Space Jam.
Yeah. So having mold powers is like being Michael Jordan in Space Jam, except you don't know you're Michael Jordan in Space Jam.
Effectively, yeah.
Okay.
And here's the thing. The reason in defense of Capcom, and I can't believe I'm saying this has been used to hand wave certain things they did for gameplay convenience. Basically it's why Ethan's hands can keep getting sliced off and he can keep reattaching them.
Mm-hmm.
It's their way of explaining, like, because the thing is, when that scene, and you know the scene I'm talking about, happened in Resident Evil 7, my thought was, holy shit, why has there not been a world revolution in medicine because of that shit? If it's able to do that.
Yeah.
And the answer was, because it's not actually able to do that. Ethan's just weird now.
Yeah.
I guess it's like, you know, when you finally realize you're dreaming, you wake up. It's kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can do all this wild shit, and then you're like, oh, wait, this isn't real. And then you wake up, and you're like, God damn it, I wanted to fuck that girl. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah, okay. I mean, Steve's apparently watching my dreams.
Steve, we charge $350 an hour for these sessions.
Oh, God. The third and final flaw I had with Resident Evil 8, though, is that Mia survived. Not just because I hate her, but there's a really messed up thing that's going to happen in Resident Evil 9.
When she's killed to give motivation to the Sherry Birkin Power Squad.
Well, here's the thing. So Resident Evil 8 ends with Ethan's daughter all grown up and missing her dad, but she's got superpowers because she's a big mold baby.
Mold baby.
Yeah. So here's the problem with that.
Oh gosh.
And no, she doesn't just have superpowers. She's being cared for by agents in black suits and black sunglasses, implying that she is currently working for a BSSA-like entity.
Isn't that how the Species
BSSA
movie
himself.
started?
Kinda, yeah. So here's the problem with that. First off, Resident Evil 9 with Mia still alive opens up the possibility that you're either going to play as Rose or as Mia. Now, if you play as Rose, one of two things is going to happen. Her mold powers are going to be too overpowered, so you're just going to, like, stomp through the game no matter what. Or her mold powers are going to be very weak, which makes people like Heisenberg building them up to be, like, really overpowered to be super underwhelming.
There's a third option that you're going to hate even more.
Oh, yeah, I know what the third option is. You play as Mia while Rose is still a child, which means you have to play as Mia.
No. The third option is Rose gets Samused, and you have to spend the rest of the game repiecing your powers back together.
Yeah.
No, that's dumb. That's always been dumb. I hate that Metroid mechanic. It's stupid. I wish it never happened.
And yet we're all going to embrace it again when Dread comes out, aren't we?
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, I get why they do it, because you can't just keep, like, retelling the origin story. You know what I mean? But,
so,
you know.
So I'm going to ask what might be an uncomfortable question here.
No.
Do you ever feel like maybe some of these game series are overstaying their welcome a bit?
Oh, all the time.
Oh,
Probably-
I think about that every day of my life.
I mean,
Okay.
So, Resident Evil 8 is the 30th game in the series.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's my point. Like, we've gotten to the point where you're basically running around in like a Romanian Dracula village, and this. Granted, this started in a haunted house, so it's not that much of a stretch. But it's like, there. How many different things can you do before you're like running out of ideas and you're like,
There is a
Ethan's been dead for 3 years.
Tina, you have to remember that this series got to a point where literally it was Resident Evil 6, the Hollywood blockbuster of Resident Evil games, where you're spanning the globe. There's like set action pieces. Like Resident Evil 6 felt like it should have been a Hollywood movie because of how much they crammed into that game.
Yeah, you were like in China and shit. And I was
Yeah,
like,
there
what
was
does China have to do with anything?
We need a highly populated city to show how horrible this virus is.
And then 8 years later, China will ban that game for showing a viral output.
Well, yeah, no.
I was about to say,
hey, Tino, you want to feel really, the virus in Resident Evil 6 is called the C virus.
Yeah. Yeah, so China
virus
in
from
2020 and last year China banned Resident Evil 6. I think it might still be banned because Resident Evil 6 featured a plot about a C virus being a major outbreak in China and affecting millions of people, and people being afraid that it's going to spread globally.
Well, so
Oh no.
So here's the thing. Yeah, that's an unfortunate example of censorship in a totalitarian state, but also Resident Evil 6 sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that.
Yo, where's my Dino Crisis remake? That's what I'm waiting for.
I would love that a lot.
That needs to be so here's the thing.
I'm ready for dinosaurs to come back.
Tino, the answer to your question is yeah, some series should have been left, and the lucky ones were.
You know what? You know, I feel about this with the Zelda franchise, and it's very apparent when they're just making Breath of the Wild again.
Yeah.
For their sequel. You know what I mean?
For me personally, it depends on how Breath of the Wild 2 turns out.
Well, you can do weird shit, like you can like go through walls and floors and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. This feels very far away from the original Zelda game.
That sounds more like a tech demo.
Yeah, my issue with Breath of the Wild 2 is that it should not be called Breath of the Wild 2. And if Nintendo is smart, the next Direct, they'll literally have it where the title changes into
Wind of the Woods.
Else, or something else of the wild to keep the theming.
Just call it Ganon's Revenge.
Oh god.
It's like when the Link to the Past sequel became Link Between Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But that's the thing is, so there's a part of me that agrees with you, Steve, on a certain extent, but I think honestly the best way that a franchise can do this is to do either the Zelda or the more blatant version of this is the Final Fantasy thing.
Right. Well,
which is,
I mean,
Final Fantasy manages to avoid that trap because each game is a different story. I'm mainly talking about story more so than game series, where like they're making too many games in a series. If each one of them is a different story, then it's not like the story gets worn out. You know?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to Zelda, you know, they eventually they had to make a timeline because fans were starting to wonder, like, so is this shit in order or like what's going on?
And then their immediate reaction to the timeline was, is the timeline crazy and convoluted? And the fans go, yes. And they're like, great, here's some shit that doesn't fit into it. Good luck, fuckers.
Yeah, so when it comes to Zelda, I think they could break away from that just by saying, the timeline isn't that important, guys. It's just a video game. Don't worry about it. I mean, like the franchise by itself isn't that complex anyway. You're not talking about the building of entire worlds. Like like Zelda 64 and Twilight Princess, their overworlds are very barren and very empty. And like there's no world building there. And even with the complexity of, it was GameCube, right? Twilight Princess was on GameCube.
GameCube
and the Wii.
GameCube
and
to Wii, yeah.
Right. So they had the technology to build that world, but they didn't. And I don't know if they did it on purpose or they just didn't have the foresight to do it.
Because Twilight Princess for me was so what's interesting to me is that Twilight Princess is the anti-Majora's Mask in that it was built in reaction to something, and it was built in. Think about how well developed most of the islands in Wind Waker were, and the fact that game got a negative reception to its art style caused them to go, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, and so they didn't think to create a populated version of Hyrule Field for this.
Right.
At the same time, the flip side of this is Majora's Mask, where it's like, hey, we still have all these assets. What can we do with them? And they do it in under a year because it's a concept that they couldn't realize in Ocarina of Time, and they were already halfway done anyway. And because it's a much smaller amount of space, they're able to do something really compelling, which is the time loop.
Yeah, well, I didn't like Majora's Mask, to be honest.
I mean,
that's probably a hot take in 2021 because everyone has done like a full 180 on that. Because I know a lot of people who didn't like Majora's Mask on release, and now they've come around and they find it enjoyable. I still don't like it, even this many years later.
It is one of my top Zelda games, like straight up.
I don't know why you think that way. Tell me why. Tell me why you think that.
Because it's Twin Peaks Zelda.
How's that helpful to me?
Oh, hold on.
I can't really explain it. I'm the kind of guy who likes the idea that this is. So the implication in Majora's Mask is that this world is moving without you. This world, Link will be gone tomorrow, and these NPCs will still be doing whatever. The only reason that you're quote unquote special is that you're time looping, and therefore you're seeing the same things repeated again and again and again. And there's a part of me that just likes that design a lot personally, and I admit it's not everyone's cup of tea. I like it. I like the slightly darker off tone of the game. It's the same reason I like Link's Awakening, which is this very bright and cheery island, but you're constantly getting this undercurrent of, hey, there's something going on here, and maybe what you're doing ain't the right thing.
I think Link's Awakening has the best, like hands down, the best story of any Zelda game.
It's another one of my favorites.
Yeah, Link's Awakening is my favorite Zelda of all time. It's even better than Ocarina of Time by far.
I understand and respect your opinion.
I will say from maybe a development perspective, I appreciate what they did with Majora's Mask, because it's like, okay, we have all these assets. Let's see what we can do with them, rather than planning out ahead, be like, okay, here's the story we want to tell. Now let's make a whole bunch of assets for it. It's be like, okay, here's all our ingredients. What can we make with it? So, I mean, I like that creative element of figuring out.
This actually provides a nice loop back to Resident Evil, because there's an uncomfortable fact about RE8 that we need to confront.
Go for it.
The primary reason they made all those nice assets of European villages.
Oh yeah, because they're gonna use them in Resident Evil 4 remake.
Exactly.
I mean, look, here's the thing. I think to some extent, I don't mind the reusing of assets at all, because getting the bolt cutters in RE2 remake and then seeing them in RE3 remake, you know what, that's kind of nifty. I like that. Especially considering how there's different puzzles that you can use them for. Not really puzzles, but I guess like barriers to use them for. I kind of do like that to an extent.
They gutted RE3 remake though.
They really did. I'll say this.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not gonna say that RE3 remake was a great job. For anyone who watches the Sphere Hunter, she actually outlined how they could have incorporated the clock tower in it, and it works really well. I 100% agree with her in her assessment. I'm not going to steal it and say it here. Go watch her channel. The other thing that she said that I agree with is why the hell in RE3 Remake did they use the "You want stars, I'll give you stars" line as a throwaway instead of the ending line to kill the Nemesis again? That really did bother me. But I enjoyed the remake for what it was. I still play it on occasion. It's fun. I have more fun going back and playing some of these modern Resident Evil games than I thought I ever would, including 8. I have problems and issues with 8, and all jokes about me hating Mia aside, you know, and all the problems with the plot. I mean, at some point when we do like a full comprehensive review of like the games in the RE series, when we get to 8, I have an entire breakdown of how I think that game's plot could have been improved. I'm not going to get into it now, but I want to kind of go back to something Tino said about his uncomfortable question of, you know, is it possible that these game franchises have stuck around too long? Basically,
and I mean that strictly from a story perspective. I see the value in like remaking games in a series as like the technology improves, and you know, maybe you can do different things with it that you couldn't do before. But I'm talking about like stories that are be like, okay, we've been telling this story way too long, and now we're just pulling random ideas out of our heads trying to make more. Yeah.
No, and I agree with you on that. I think the problem is not so much that it necessarily went on for too long. I think the problem is it had such a surge of initial success that, you know, we have to keep going. You know when like a sitcom goes on for too long?
Oh yeah, there's literally a term for that. It's called seasonal rot.
Yeah, and it's like how people still watch The Simpsons because it's like, well, I have to see how it ends. It's like, well, no.
Well, no, you don't. And so Tino, I'm gonna answer your inquiry with a story, because there's a side series, technically, to Resident Evil.
Devil May Cry?
Called Devil May Cry.
Yep.
How is it a side series? I thought they were different universes.
They are.
Well, they are, but it was gonna be Resident Evil 4, right? And then they changed it. Yeah. Dante
was supposed to be Leon Kennedy. But the ideas of Resident Evil 4, of that version of Resident Evil 4, got so wild and out of hand that they turned it into its own series called Devil May Cry. And Devil May Cry has existed for
it's probably 20 years now, right?
Nearly 20 some odd years. And it went through 4 games, multiple special editions, a pachinko game, a very not well done reboot, and finally a 5th game that was a culmination and celebration of everything they had achieved, done on the RE engine, Devil May Cry 5. It's a beautiful, amazing game. And the way Devil May Cry 5 ends, I think that Wooly of Woolyverses said it best. If this is the last game in the franchise, I'm fine with that.
Go ahead.
My power just surged.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
You're still with us though.
Yeah.
Yes. But if this is where the series ends, then I'm fine with that. Keep in mind, Devil May Cry was a dead franchise for like 10 odd years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
it was.
It was dead on a very unsatisfying note. And I think that, Devil May Cry got a good conclusion. There was a handoff with the idea of, hey, maybe DMC6, hey? But if it ended here, it ends on a good note with us dreaming of the future rather than seeing it.
Yeah. And I think that there is something to be said about writing a series in such a way that it can do that, and you just have to hope that nobody gets the idea to keep going, even though the story is clearly already over. That's what happened to Star Wars. It's what happened to Halo, and that kind of happened with Mass Effect, although not really. But like, it's happened with so many things. It happened with Indiana Jones. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody decides to go make a DMC6 and it turns out to be horrible, people are going to be like, you should have ended it with 5. You could have ended it on a good note. The story was over.
Yeah. I think Capcom has this problem where they don't have too many IPs left that they're willing to expand upon. Like, they have the Resident Evil franchise. They have Street Fighter, which is basically, I think, is their bread and butter at this point.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It absolutely is, because they still milk the shit out of Street Fighter 5.
Monster Hunter.
Yeah, Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is their bread and butter on the Japan side. I don't think Monster Hunter has the hype in America that it does here. That it does there.
World was a breakthrough, and it gave them North America as well.
I think so, but not nearly the same appeal that they have in Japan.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I agree with you. But Japan is Capcom is a Japanese company, and the Japanese market to them comes first.
Yeah, so and someone actually said this a while back that they think that Resident Evil is going to become Capcom's Call of Duty, where they make a new game every year, whether they continue the franchise or they just go and remake a bunch of their old stuff. And I could see that happening, to be honest.
That Resident Evil as an annualized release.
I'm going to push back on that because I think
shit.
No, here's what I think happened.
I don't entirely agree with that assessment.
Yeah,
just to be clear.
Because
I could see it happening though. If they get in trouble, if they get into financial trouble with their other IPs, they could end up selling out and doing that.
It sounds to me like an idea that you're right. I don't agree that it's going to happen, but it seems like something that they'd be dumb enough to try.
I mean, I don't know how long RE8 was in development. I really don't know, but it just sounds to me that we had RE2 remake, and then what was it? A year later, RE3 remake came out.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I think the issue is with the remakes and stuff. Capcom. So Capcom seems like a company that, at least when it comes to Resident Evil, when they hit a major stumbling block, they do try to course correct. They didn't hit a stumbling block with the first 3 Resident Evil games.
Mm-hmm.
You could say maybe they kind of did with Code Veronica because it got some mixed reviews, but then they decided, hey, let's make Resident Evil 4 go in a new direction. Mm-hmm. And that got them a ton of money and prestige, so they doubled down on it with RE5, and that did pretty well too, so they doubled down again with it on RE6 and decided to make it this big blockbuster game, and
that didn't pay off.
No, because they're like, oh yeah, fans don't want more of the same. They want us to try to, be creative with our game. So then, now granted, I had issues with RE7, but a lot of people loved it. And they were like, okay, reintroduce survival horror. And I will say, for that aspect of where it took the RE franchise, I very much appreciate RE7. I think RE2 and 3 remake, they kind of suffered from the same thing, which is they were being developed kind of coincided with each other, at the same time. Mm-hmm. And, you also had development of RE8 at the same time. So you had 3 games being developed at the same time. Now, I think trying to pump out 3 big name titles 1 year after the next, because I think RE2 remake was January of 2019, RE3 remake was April of 2020, and RE8 was May of this year. So they're coming out within 2 years of each other.
Yeah.
So
I think Capcom wants to keep our Resident Evil in people's minds, because we're getting the RE4 VR version for Oculus Quest 2. That's supposedly coming out the end of this year, but I don't know if that's true. And then they have that anniversary game that was in beta that people played and didn't like. What was that called again? Reverse? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Reverse.
Yeah, there's that too. So I feel that they're going to be constantly keeping Resident Evil in the spotlight, whether they make a new game or if they go back and touch on an old.
I would like to point out that we've seen what annualized Resident Evil looks like. Because remember, there are.
Well, I don't think we're there. I don't think we're there yet.
No. I think it already happened and they backed off. Because remember,
I don't think so.
I don't think it was an effort to make it. I don't
feel that way.
I don't think it was an effort to make it an annualized release. I think it was trying to do too many things at the same time. And granted, the end result of those things was, I'll say this. Overall, Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake, and Resident Evil 8
I'm not talking about that.
Games.
I'm talking about all the spin-offs, like Outbreak and stuff.
Outbreak was good. We had this conversation before.
Yeah, we already had this conversation.
No. I mean, so the Outbreak was good, but there were a bunch of ones that weren't. Like,
there were over 4 Outbreak games, and they were
What are you talking? What are you talking about?
There-
Revelations?
No, yeah,
because those are good too.
Yeah, well, things
Yeah.
like Revelation. So that's the thing. There has been annualized Resident Evil releases, is what I'm trying to say.
Not to the extent of Call of Duty. It's not like every November you get a new Resident Evil game. It's like maybe like
I think
every 2 years?
it's not Call of Duty level. So there is a model they could be pursuing, which is the Like a Dragon model, the Ryuga Gokuto, the Yakuza model, which is now no longer existent because Nagoshi is leaving Sega. And that's a whole separate thing. But
Right.
but basically there was a time
when
Yakuza games came out in Japan every year. And they just, because it was easy to reuse assets for them.
Mm-hmm.
And there were stinkers in those games.
yeah. Well,
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to Resident Evil, they're not going to necessarily keep making a Resident Evil 9, a Resident Evil 10, Resident Evil 11.
That's what I'm saying.
I think they're going to just touch on other things, whether it be a spin-off or they're going to revisit an old game and remaster it or remake it. But I think that Resident Evil going forward is going to be Capcom's priority. I think.
I think Capcom needs to learn a lesson that Square learned, where Square used to do, let's build up a game for a decade, and then when it comes out, people are disappointed by the end result, like what happened with Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 15.
Right.
God, those games got built up forever. And then when they came out, people were like, this is it. Because eventually, I think if you spend too much time building up a game, no matter how much hype you give it, you'll never live up to that hype, no matter how good you make it.
Yeah, I think Square Enix also has the problem of wanting to always use their own engine. That causes problems by getting stuck in development hell, and then a huge technology breakthrough comes out and they're like, okay, well, we got to start all over again. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of what Final Fantasy 15 was experiencing, because they kept running into trouble, and then they would scrap it and remake the engine, and then it just took a long time for it to finally come out. And that's on Square Enix, really, to be that stubborn and want to make something in-house when they already have. They can always use the Unreal Engine. It's still a fine engine.
Or Unity or Godot, for that matter.
Didn't they finally
Sega, I think, has actually started using Godot, but
yeah,
right.
Didn't Square cave on using outside engines? Because Kingdom Hearts was in Unreal.
Kingdom Hearts 3 was, yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 3 was, yes.
Kingdom Hearts 3 was. FF14, is FF14 still on Crystal Tools?
I'm not sure. I really don't know.
Because I swore that FF14 was on something. And
they did overhaul their graphics at one point, though. I think when they moved to DirectX 12.
Yeah, when 32-bit died. I don't know about 16 or if 16's on anything proprietary. Because the thing is,
I'm not sure.
Because the thing is, the side of Square Enix that does their FMVs is still different from the actual in-game crowd.
Right.
I don't know if I'm maybe ignorant of the economics of this, but I have to wonder if these large game companies might stand to gain something by having a special department, and not exactly an R&D department, more like an indie department where we're like, okay, we're just going to experiment and create, whatever we come up with. It could be wacky, it could be, unconventional, and unlike an indie developer, they would have the budget to market this kind of stuff. And
you're literally describing Nintendo.
Yeah, I think that's what Nintendo is.
You're just literally describing Nintendo.
Here's what I'm saying. With that would keep. I'm saying, Nintendo does that kind of thing. I'm saying these other game companies, they might have their bread and butter, like Resident Evil, like Call of Duty, but if people are getting bored with those titles, or they keep retreading the same ground with those titles, what something like that would enable them to do is to see what fans respond to and be like, oh, hey, we might have a new thing here. We might have the next Resident Evil or whatever, even if it starts small.
Yeah, sorry. Nintendo gets away with being able to do that thanks to a 200-year war chest that Link and Zelda just shovel money. That Link and Mario just shovel money into.
I think it comes...
Well, yeah, that's my point.
I think it comes
Breath
down
of
to...
the Wild 2 exists so that Splatoon can be born.
Yeah, I think it comes down to expectation. These companies have always been labeled as AAA companies, so they're expecting a level of quality and level of detail, a level of detail that the indie companies just can't do, or at least not in a reasonable time frame. I mean, indie companies could make games like this. It would just take a really long time. Like I think No Man's Sky was in development for a very long time because they had such a small. They just had a small development team,
and it's still released half-baked, and it took to their credit, they spent the years it took to get it to be good.
Yeah, they made good on their promise, I'd say. In the end, they did. But yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to expectation. I don't really, me personally. Well, actually, no, not. I would your proposal I would be okay with personally, but when it comes to other people, I don't think they share the same sentiments. And they don't want a 2D video game from Square Enix. They just don't. And that's sad that that's the reality, but I just think that making games like that would be a massive gamble for them.
Yeah, well, like I said, it would be like an experimental thing where it's like, okay, if we lose all the money we spent in this quarter on that department, it's like it's not going to sink us. But I don't know. That's the kind of thing that I would do if I was running a game company. But then again, like I said, I'm a little bit ignorant of the economics behind it, so maybe it wouldn't be worth the time or money.
So yeah, I think it would take a lot to set up that kind of department. Like you have to hire people, you have to interview people. You have to set up who's in charge of what. It would take a lot in order to come up with a small department, only to have it fail 2 years later. You know what I mean?
It's literally the Nintendo model. It's the Nintendo model that was born. So there's a reason why when you watch old documentaries about old Nintendo games, they talk about groups like R&D 1 and R&D 3 and whatnot. These were different teams inside Nintendo who typically weren't even given a task to make. They weren't told to make a boxing game. They were told make a game that uses 2 monitors for an arcade.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think those R&D departments didn't even talk to each other. Not intimately anyway.
They barely did. There was both advantages and horrific disadvantages to this. There were stories in the old days of people. The guy who programmed Kid Icarus literally spent several months not leaving Nintendo's offices.
Oh gosh.
Right. But Nintendo, set that tone from the start. They've always been like this. I mean, that's something you come to expect from Nintendo. They're the company that always says, well, why don't we do it this way instead of what everyone else is doing?
That's the thing is I find fascinating because Nintendo's often considered to be the video game Disney for their stringent IP defense and their quote unquote family friendly image. And so it was genuinely shocking when they were the ones who rescued Bayonetta and made it a Nintendo franchise.
Rescued Bayonetta and announced that they're going to be releasing like Dead or Alive, Venus Vacation on the Switch uncensored.
Yeah. So
Nintendo don't give a fuck.
But that's the thing, is that the truth was always more complicated. The family-friendly part is Nintendo's own franchises. This is also the same studio that authorized on the Wii, which I remind you was their most casual-friendly console they ever made, games like Mad World, which is literally sold on your ability to chainsaw people to death, and the entirety of the No More Heroes franchise, which they just brought back.
Yep, No More Heroes 3.
Yeah.
I've been playing it. It's good.
So my whole thing with a lot of these game companies, and it's, I guess, to once again go back to something that you mentioned before, Tino, there's a very fine possibility that a lot of these franchises have overstayed their welcome. But when you have a company like Nintendo that can generally like refresh their whatever series it is with new ideas and make it more entertaining, like, you know, if people didn't like Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild was a nice change of pace. If people hated the weapons breaking, hey, Skyward Sword is being remastered and it's still fun to play. You know,
isn't there still durability in freaking Skyward Sword for the shields?
Yeah, but you could get them repaired super easy, even if they break, so you don't have to like find another shield. And
True.
once you get the Hylian shield, it has no durability.
True.
Well, what I was saying about series overstaying their welcome is that I feel as though that doesn't really apply to game series like Zelda or all the Mario games, because each Zelda game can be basically its own self-contained story, and it's not like, okay, well, how are we dealing with all that stuff that we've built up? Like, you can just change stuff because it's
okay. Well then,
so
it's
well, then,
also
so you can still play around with the same characters, but
Tino,
it's not like you're ever going to get to a point where the story is over. Do you see what I'm saying?
But to put it in context, I guess here's, so Resident Evil 8 might be like the ping on the radar that's saying that's where Resident Evil's going to. But look at another survival horror game franchise that died out real quick, Parasite Eve. That first game
oh god,
was really good. Like, it was astoundingly good. The second game was good, but it wasn't
Parasite
great.
Eve is a whole different kettle of fish.
Not really, because it's about games overstaying their welcome. And guess what? By the end of that second game, or actually by the third game in the Parasite Eve series, it overstayed its welcome. Because it was around for too long.
What happened is that people were clamoring for a Parasite Eve 3, and they came to regret what they were asking for.
Yeah.
But that's, like I said, it's a separate kettle of fish, because that also factors into some really poor story decisions. Tino, the reason Nintendo is able to get away with these long-running franchises is because of one thing. They are very willing to experiment.
I think and that's what I was saying earlier.
But not just with story. To them, it's gameplay experimentation first, story justification second, and they just happen to be willing to give things a shot even if they're not good ideas.
But I would argue that Nintendo's storylines aren't always the most intricate, and I think a lot of people can forgive that because of the way they innovate their games so gracefully.
Yeah.
If the gameplay is fun, people are willing to forgive a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of why the Silent Hill games went away.
Yeah, like Super Mario 64 isn't going to win a Pulitzer,
Exactly.
Sure. But it will still be rated as like in the top 10 of like the best 100 games of all time.
Yeah, exactly, because that game wasn't about the story, it was about the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, if you have a game that is nothing but story, you have to make sure that story is damn fucking good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me because there's an RPG that came out not so recently. It's like a year or two old now, called Disco Elysium.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an RPG that's been getting a lot of good press. A version of it came out called The Final Cut, which has most of it being narrated and voice acted, because this game is horrifically text heavy, because it was written by a novelist taking place in a universe that the novelist already published a book in.
Okay.
Now, mind you, the game studio is Estonian. The novel has not been released in English. This game is the first exposure we've been given to this world.
So the game was text heavy. Is this like a visual novel, or is it?
It is an RPG. It is a CRPG. It is a point and click. And the deal is that your stats, your party members, are your stats, and they're different aspects of your personality. Your composure, your physical instrument, your half-light, your visual calculus, your perception, they talk to you.
Okay.
And they all have different personalities.
Interesting.
And,
it's like
listen,
Inside Out almost. but sounds like it might be darker.
It is also. Oh no, this is also the most. There's a difference I want to say between a game that's mature and a game that's adult. This is the most adult game in that the content is heavy, but it's not heavy in a look at all this sex and gorgeous. It's heavy in a this is a situation that I, as a 30-year-old individual, have felt. And
yeah.
Hurts.
So
it's
so
like a
deep, dark philosophical stuff.
Not even, well, yeah, philosophical stuff, but also the, oh God, I can't dive into any examples because they're heavy spoilers. But, have you ever been in a conversation where you know you're about to say something stupid and you can't stop yourself?
I'm kind of in one right now.
I feel like that's every conversation I have in my life.
Jesus.
So the funny thing about Disco Elysium is that in conversations there will be skill checks, and they're represented by 2 D6s rolling on screen, and you can fail checks in the middle of conversations, and then you'll just have a single option that you can't back out of.
Oh no.
Oh, it's there's both hilarious shit, and then there's like, oh no, no, I don't want to say that. The best one is early on when you are talking to a woman, and because of the state your main character is in, if you fail the check, which is a check you're most likely to fail because it's very early in the game before you've had a chance to level up anything, because you find her attractive, your brain says, hey, say something nice to her. You fail the check. The line is, I would like to make fuck with you.
Oh, Google Translate.
That's not Google Translate.
Wow.
It's your
the
brain.
Google Translate of your brain.
Yeah, and
good luck. Take luck and care.
I will say this real quickly on the premise for anyone who's interested in playing Disco Elysium, because it is coming to the Switch and it's on like PC and PS4 and 360 and Series X, I think. For anyone that's to play. The premise is simple. You wake up in a hotel room with zero memory of who you are, suffering amnesia, both episodic and semantic. Only to very quickly learn that 1, you have just completed the mother of all benders for reasons that become readily apparent as you explore the world. And 2, you're a cop who's been on the scene of a murder for a week. And you haven't started work yet.
So it's The Hangover, the video game.
And the body
Sounds
is
like
still
it.
hanging and the body is still hanging from a tree in a courtyard.
Oh, good.
It's been a week and no one took it down?
Well, it's
That's
Halloween.
Well,
They want to decorate for the season.
not only is no one taking down a local shit kid child, good Lord Kuno, his name's fucking Kuno. Kuno doesn't fucking care, is throwing rocks at it.
Lovely game.
Oh no, this is the shit. This game is, you're not in the good place. You are in the bad place of a city that's not doing great.
I gathered that from the body hanging from a tree for a week.
I love how the term shit kid has become like a term that gets used in everyday conversation.
I mean,
This is
to
the first
be
time
fair,
I've heard
this character earns the moniker by his own admission. There's a lot I could say on this, but the point I'm trying to make is the bar for story in video games over the past couple decades has risen considerably. And if you're going to rely on your story, it's not, you can't coast on it anymore. You can't have some sophomore themes and claim, my story is very enlightening. No, not when this novel in the form of a video game exists.
Right. Because video games are competing for your attention now. I mean, TV shows have such a high level of production in them now, with such intricate storylines. Game of Thrones is a great example. Video games have to catch up. That's the only way that
great
they can.
Example.
It was for like a decade. It was. You have to give it that.
For the majority of the show, yes, it was. I don't let the last season deter from the 7 seasons before it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I think it's very important to, at this point, at this stage in the entertainment industry as a whole, you really got to come correct when you're making a story-heavy video game. You really have to.
Yeah, I mean, if your game or anything is going to be story focused, then that has to be what you take care of first, aside from anything else. Be it, if we're talking about movies, then aside from visual quality, you can have a crappy visual quality film that still has a great story and people will love it. Same with video games. I mean, that's why visual novels work. It's just text on a screen with a background and a PNG that pops up every so often. If you have a good story, it'll keep people's attention. If not, people just be like, all right, I'm bored, and then go do something else.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're basically reading a book with music,
Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. So
That's
anyway,
Yeah.
I think it's time to wrap up the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, it's been an hour and 40 minutes. We need to
we
wrap
survived
this
the
shit up.
tornadoes and floods. Oh my!
It's
Yeah,
still
no one's power went out, so that's good.
It's still going on
somehow.
here.
Yeah.
No, that was just my girlfriend messaging me, asking me where the fuck I am.
Oh,
Love you, sweetheart. I know you're gonna watch.
You're in New Jersey.
yeah, you're at your apartment.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
in my
Where
apartment.
would you be?
Fair enough.
Where are you from?
Dave is secretly a vigilante.
Where are you from?
Anyway, America, thank you for listening to our bullshit once again. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.
Survive
See
the natural
everybody.
disasters, everyone.
Wait. Is there anything else that we need to talk about?
Don't lie to me or I'll know, Tino.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
And,
we
it is.
Screw
forgot to
Kingdom
say it
Hearts.
the past few times. Oh my god, yes!
Yeah,
We
also
forgot-
fuck Kingdom Hearts. Fuck that franchise.
Yeah.
how do we forget to do our staples?